Hi, Tamarindo listeners. I am so excited to welcome back Delsy to co-host this episode with me. Delsy was on short leave from the podcast, and it has prompted us to reflect on our aging and changing bodies. So we're going to take a few minutes to discuss how we're embracing or attempting to embrace how we're changing in our bodies, how cultural expectations on Latinas have impacted our perspectives, and how notions of what is quote unquote healthy have evolved. Next, we speak to Dalina Soto, also known as Your Latina Nutritionist across social media, where she helps folks heal their relationship with food. Dalina and I have an insightful conversation about how white supremacy shows up in our notions of health and the ways that she's using her chula method to empower folks to make food choices that feel good for our bodies and our culture. Dalina's chula's method stands for challenging negative thoughts, honor our bodies and health, listen to our hunger, and acknowledge our emotions. You'll hear more from Dalina in just a moment, but for now, let's get started with Delsy back on Tamarindo. Welcome to Tamarindo Podcast, hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delsy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos! Let's start the show. All right, listeners, I am so excited, and I know all of you are too, because Delsy is back. Delsy, how are you?
Oh my God, it's so exciting to be back. I can't tell you how much I've thought about this moment. I have missed you. I've missed the podcast. I have missed thinking about the topics that you and I prepare for and having those be at the top of my mind. I've missed the audience. Like, you know, you don't realize how much a part of your life podcasting becomes until you cease to do it. So
yes.
Thank you for welcoming me back.
We're so excited to have you back. I know you had a well-deserved pause and you are back. And I'm just delighted. I'm so delighted. We already had a catch up, but this is our first Zoom check-in, and it's of the year. So it's just beautiful to see your face and just to connect and to know that you're well and having you back here on Tamarindo. Okay, so one of the things that we've been thinking about is our aging and changing bodies. And I know that this is something that you wanted to touch on, and also is really related to our guest for today. So I think this is a perfect theme for our catch-up chat right now. Okay, so Delsy, I know you've been thinking about this. And how do you personally navigate the tensions between embracing our aging and changing bodies and some of the things that what our bodies used to do? Like, how are you embracing this change right now?
I feel like this one's a really big one for me, Brenda, because, you know, I have been dealing with like chronic illness for some time and a lot of things like that. And so for me, the way my body has changed over time has been drastic, really drastic. And so having to sort of readjust what I think is fun, readjust like how much I can plan to do. If someone says, hey, do you want to go on a hike in a month? I used to be able to be like, yes, let's go on a hike now. But now I have to say, well, let's see, y vamos a ver, because you never know, that could wake up $1 million that day or wake up feeling awful. And so it's been a really interesting experience, but I think what's really helped me is that part of what's beautiful about getting older is that I have like a longer frame of reference now to look back on. And I realize how much my body has carried me through every version of my life, every decade of my life so far, right? My body has been with me. And there's been so much that has happened. And I've been able to rely on sort of this vessel that has helped me experience life and have really beautiful moments. And so there's this gratitude that I live in of like thinking about that actively, like, thank God for my body, really. And even in the state that it's in now, I'm just so thankful for the things that I am able to still do and to make happen. So I think that's how I've been able to help with that transition. Although I will say every now and then I see a picture of myself from, 5 years ago, and I'm like, wait a second, 5 years ago. But I think I move past it with accepting that kind of growth and change.
I really love what you said, because it makes me think about a lot of things. One, that's such a great practice to be rooted in gratitude. And it reminds me a little bit of Wendy Amara, who is going to be coming to Encuentro. I just did one of her projects that she had is the Quantum Leap Challenge. And part of it was about approaching whatever change you want in your life by looking at your current situation and actually be grateful for it. So I think you're modeling that practice of like looking at and being grateful and starting with a place of gratitude that really can be a positive way to call in that radical acceptance, because it could be very difficult. It could be very challenging. And I know that you've kind of alluded to this a little bit, that now you have to really think about what you can take on, because it's going to require different kinds of energies, right? Your energy is a little bit different now than it might have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that I'm sure is relatable to a lot of listeners that have had, whether it be a chronic illness or just aging generally. Like, our bodies are different. And I think that's such a wonderful place to start is of gratitude. I find that to be very grounding, very powerful. I mean, I think that I'm trying to emulate that as well. For me, the changes in my body that I see is more around aging in my face, like wrinkles. Listeners can't see, but I have a new hairdo, bangs, and part of my motivation for the bangs is like, oh, okay, maybe I could buy a few more years before I have to get Botox, because the bangs are going to cover something.
Buy a few more years.
Yeah, or like I see pictures and I see a lot of lines around my eyes that maybe weren't there. But again, just kind of like this idea of radical acceptance and gratitude, that like, wow, one of these days, and 10 years from now, I'm going to be looking back at this moment and longing for it. So if we could just stay in the present and appreciate what our body can do now, I think is very powerful. So I really love that. Okay, next question for you is like, what is one thing that you do now to take care of your body that you never would have imagined you would be doing? Your younger self would not be imagining that you do this now.
Okay, I want you guys to imagine my younger self. I was like trying to live really fast and do all the things at the same time. So I was like hardcore student, but then also hardcore with my hobbies, but also partying a lot, but also traveling a lot, but also it was like I had to do everything now. And for me, rest was not an option. It was like a luxury, or even sometimes I saw it as like a sign of laziness. And I grew up in a house where my parents are busy every moment of all the time, so I never saw people take breaks or, say, hey, I'm going to opt out of that because it would make it too crazy for the week. I never saw anybody do that. And it didn't even enter my mind as an option. And I think because of that, I sort of pushed my body beyond its limits a lot. And I actually was very proud of that. I was very proud as a young person of how much I could inflict really on my body and make it work, especially at the gym and, with all the things I was doing. And I was doing like roller derby for a little bit. And I would just,
oh my goodness. I didn't even know that. That's amazing. I'm always learning things about Delsy. Yeah, I love it.
And I would run and I would do all these things. And I even took like a survival class where I had to be dropped off someplace for 3 days and try to survive. I mean, it was like a whole thing. And now I'm like, oh my God, you know what? I'm going to opt out of that thing this week because I need to rest. And it is so incredible what it is to give yourself that time and allow your body to rest so that the next day is much more enjoyable and you're much more capable. You know what I mean, Brenda?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have so many thoughts. One, this is sidebar, but have you seen the show Alone on Netflix? Speaking of like getting dropped off in the wilderness. And if you haven't, I recommend, especially the one in
I
Australia.
need to watch that. I am aware of it.
This is good. We really enjoy that show. I think you will especially like the New Zealand one. So you have to see that, because as soon as you mentioned that it looks like you at one point in your life you probably would have signed up for this show. It sounds like, yeah. I mean, I've noticed too that like. There's so many things that you said there. One, like this idea of wearing it as a badge of honor that we're doing so much. I think there's so much there, and it may be from the way you talked about the way your parents were always doing things. My parents were always doing things, and it's also this immigrant burden of like you got this one shot, and you make sure that you got to take advantage and be productive. I think there's a lot of things that we need to break away. And so this idea of bringing in rest, and sometimes we're forced to do rest, right? Like sometimes it takes something radical to force us to do rest, and it could be very life altering and difficult, but like rest is important. We all need it. And we need to treat our body with kindness. You deserve that, right? Like that message that we deserve to treat our body with kindness. And if our body calls for rest, then we need to give it rest, and know that it is not a sign of laziness. All of that is so difficult to get used to. But thank you for sharing how you've been approaching this and how it's been a little bit of a shift. Okay, the next question for you is, how has your definition of feeling healthy evolved over time as we're kind of thinking about our changing bodies and our changing acceptance of these things?
I think before I used to think of health almost like a checklist. Like, okay, did I eat this? Yes. Did I drink those 60 ounces of water? Yes. Did I go to the gym, 4 to whatever times a week? See, did I do this? Did I do that? And do I look a certain way? Do my clothes fit a certain way? I was always looking at those kinds of markers growing up. And obviously I was taught, like, I learned that from somewhere. But recently it's less about that. And it's more about like, do I feel mental clarity? Do I feel like my body is in a relaxed state? Do I feel like my brain is able to pay attention when someone else is telling me something, things like that? Because I had gotten to a point in my burnout where even fun things were no longer fun. So like I would go out for, let's say, cocktails after work, and people were talking and I was no longer like really present anymore. Like that's the level of tired that I'd gotten to, where I was just kind of like going through the motions. So for me now, I pay attention to like, if I schedule something fun, did I have fun? Like if I'm with a friend, do I feel that feeling of friendship because I'm present? That's what health looks like for me. And I know when that's not the case, and when I'm not healthy enough to engage in the world positively. I think that's a massive change from how I viewed health as a young person.
So I like this. So doing when we're assessing a situation, like doing that mental check, that question of like, do I have the clarity of mind, the presence of mind to enjoy this? Was this joyful for me? I think that's a really great practice to start to ask ourselves that and to take inventory in that way. And I'm wondering if, because I have felt this as well, and I think, to me, there's something else that's happening right now in March is that this is the 5th anniversary of the pandemic. Like it's crazy to think, but 5 years ago in March is when things shut down and everybody's life was radically shifted. And I have felt that the pandemic was one of the things that pushed a lot of people to start thinking in this way of being more selective of our energy and how we spend our energy and with who we spend our energy. Do you feel like the pandemic has had a role in that, or is it more like your age or a factor of all these things?
I think the pandemic had a huge factor in this for me, a massive factor. I mean, even if you think about the fact that I started podcasting during the pandemic, it was like, because there was so much unknown going on and so many scary things and so many things I couldn't do. I think once the world kind of opened up to me again, everything carried more weight and everything kind of carried more meaning. And I wanted to prioritize joy. And I think for the first time in my life, I wanted to prioritize joy. I want to say that maybe the last time I prioritized joy before then, I was like 14. Like, you know, when you're a teenager and you're like, I just want to hang out with my friends and leave me alone, mom. I think that I had forgotten that person. And when the pandemic hit, it's like all I wanted to do was rediscover that Delsy and start enjoying my life again. I think I had gotten really caught up in like achievement and working hard and doing this and that and, you know, todas esas cosas. And I think I'm finding more balance now. Interestingly enough, even with all the additional challenges, you know?
Yeah, I think people can probably relate to that. How do you think cultural expectations have shaped how we see our bodies? And what's one way that you're working to unlearn that?
Oh my God, I don't know if there's any part of how I see my body that isn't influenced by culture. I mean, I really have come to into the awareness of that. And me being bicultural or multicultural, the lessons are coming from all over the place, you know. And I think I learned to care a lot about what I looked like, to care a lot about shapes, colors, sizes, textures of my body, like the minutia that people have decided, you know, there's even like a right kind of belly button and a wrong kind of belly button. Like I have literally learned that everything about my womanhood and my body is kind of up for debate with the world. And that caused a lot of pressure on the way that I see myself and saw myself for a long time. And I think it's been a long healing journey of understanding that and thinking about what that means for me, especially someone like me that isn't super comfortable with femininity. There's a lot around that. But I think one way that I'm unlearning that is that centering joy. And I know we just talked about this, but I want to just like build a thread here because when I move, I'm embracing movement for joy. Like I want to dance, you know, I go to these workout classes. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy it. You know, one of my friends has this class in New York called Free the Jiggle.
Oh my God. That sounds so fun.
Just let your body jiggle, you know, is this fun for me? Do I enjoy this as opposed to something that I'm doing as like almost like punishment, if that makes sense? Because I used to do these really hardcore boot camps that I thought that I needed to do to combat, you know, all the cakes that I'd eaten or whatever. I'm no longer thinking that way. And I'm not thinking about food that way. I'm not thinking about my body that way. And I think I've been so much more content with who I am and what I look like and feel like in the world. And other people can pick up on that.
Yes, it's contagious. Before I tell you about our next guest, because this is so related to what we talk about with our next guest, I'll tell you a couple of things that come to mind when I think about cultural expectations about our bodies. For Latinas especially, it's difficult because we get criticized a lot about, oh, estás gorda, like internal, like with our own families, there's a lot of messaging. There's a lot of there's fat phobia, right? Messaging that we're getting within our families. At the same time, there's expectations for Latinas to be thick, right? To have big hips, to have the big boobs, to look like Sofia Vergara, who looks incredible, you know? And I remembering when I had a crush on someone in 9th grade before I had any sort of shape or figure, I remember a boy said to me, oh, I can't go out with her because she's not thick. So we've been hearing this for 20 plus years, right?
Which is interesting because, you know, I grew up kind of with people being like, oh, you know, your hips are so wide. You know, maybe if you did this or that, you would have like less thick thighs or this or that. And it was like, I was thick in certain places that was okay. And then not in other places that, you know, it was not okay. And it is just a very uncomfortable experience, right, to feel like people are even aware of these shapes of your body. It's totally absurd.
Yeah, and even if let's say you achieve the quote unquote healthy figure, which we'll hear our guests say that a lot of those notions of what we think is the ideal body type or the ideal health standard are all rooted in white supremacy. And we know that white supremacy is everywhere, including in Latin America. So we're getting these messages. It all starts with white supremacy. One of the things too that feels really uncomfortable is just commenting on bodies anyways. So even if you do reach this like ideal shape and size, quote unquote ideal shape and size, people will say things like, wow, you're doing a great job. Or, what are you doing? You look great. Like even those things that seemingly seem positive are actually reinforcing diet culture and can produce more pressure to then maintain, and knowing that our bodies are going to change no matter what. And so now we have this new pressure to maintain that great body that got us all those compliments. So we have so many external things that are shaping that, right?
Yes. And I just want to share, you guys, that to everybody listening, like there have been moments while I'm combating a lot of illness where I have been unable to eat for long periods of time as a result of like different reasons, different medical reasons. And I've lost a ton of weight. And I can't tell you how much I get complimented when I'm at my sickest, when my body feels at its worst and I am in, a chronic state, is when people are like, te ves bien linda, which I think is something important to think about. And the fact that when my body is at its healthiest and I'm feeling great, it's sometimes the opposite kind of reaction from people, which is interesting.
That is such an interesting point. You're like, yeah, you look great. Okay, fantastic. You should have seen that I was hugging the toilet yesterday,
Yeah, exactly. I look cute on this couch because I can't move right now. So
yeah, definitely. There's so many things to that we all navigate. Okay, well, I love that we did this catch up to talk about our changing bodies. I love that you're back. I know our listeners have been missing you. And our next guest, kind of continuing this thread in this conversation, I think unfortunately, because of our society, a lot of these concepts about our bodies are related to weight, right? There's a lot about our weight, and then concepts about health. We think about how this also has a lot to do with what we're eating. So we have a great guest who's a dietitian. We have Dalina Soto. She's a registered dietitian and a first-generation Dominican American based in Philadelphia. And she's here to speak to us about her new book. It's called The Latina Anti-Diet, a dietitian's guide to authentic health, and that celebrates culture and full flavor living. So this is an awesome book. I talked to Dalina a little bit about why she started it around helping us all break free from these notions of the quote unquote healthy body type or quote unquote healthy eating, and how we can all feel liberated to enjoy food in a way that it's not consuming all of our thoughts, and we can eat the foods that we grew up with and feel good about it. And we know that's easier said than done. So let's hear from Dalina now, who's going to tell us some of the ways that she's worked with clients to help us break free from diet culture. And y'all pick up the book. It's fantastic. Let's hear from Dalina now. All right. Welcome, Dalina Soto. It is so wonderful to have you on Tamarindo. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
All right. So here today, we're going to talk about your new book, which is out already. It's called The Latina Anti-Diet. And I want to first start with where you began this book, because I really appreciated that you started with giving us some historical context about where our perceptions of quote unquote healthy come from, our perceptions of a healthy eating and healthy body, and how that it's all rooted in white supremacy. I wanted you to tell our listeners why it was important for you to start there.
Yeah, I think that it was really important for me to set the stage historically and also from like a medical perspective of why we see health the way that we do now, especially in the year 2025. And what the connections were, right, between like the wellness world, health, and, the anti-Blackness and like white supremacy of it all. And I think that just helps people understand why things are the way that they are. And then it allows them to, make better choices when they're thinking ahead, or even just as they're reading the book to understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And I think too, something else that I really found powerful in reminding us that these notions of health come from white supremacy is that it could be very liberating to understand that where that's coming from, because now you're like, I don't want to participate in white supremacy. I don't need to carry this burden that I will never have the perfect BMI, or I'm not going to have the quote unquote perfect BMI, or this ideal, because that was never for me. So I really find that it's a great place to start to disrupt our notions of what is healthy, so that then we can instead substitute that with something much more healthier, like healthier really truly about how we approach food and dieting. Something else I really appreciate from the book is how you teach us the difference between eating disorders and disordered eating. And I think a lot of us might be suffering from disordered eating and not even know about it. So I would love for you to briefly walk us through the difference between the two.
Yeah. So I think, when I wrote the book, statistically speaking, it was more than 80% of women had some sort of disordered eating. And eating disorders are less diagnosed because you need to have a psychologist, and a doctor diagnose that. Registered dietitians cannot diagnose that themselves. We would refer out and get that diagnosis if we see any red flags. So an eating disorder is considered a mental health issue. And I, think it's important for people to understand that, like, how we eat and how we view food and how we interact with food really does affect our mental health, which is why, it's categorized in that, lens. But it's also important to understand that, like, if you're literally suffering and like stressing about every single thing that you eat every single day, that can be a sign that you have disordered eating. Like, if you can't just like go out and enjoy life because you are so stressed out about like, how much protein am I eating? How many calories am I having? Is this too much fat? Like, do I have to work out after this? Right? A lot of that language that we hear often in wellness culture, like at the gym, it's one of my biggest pet peeves when, I go to the gym after Thanksgiving and everybody's like, work those turkey day calories off. And I'm like, why? It was just like, like, it was a regular day of eating, maybe a little bit more for some people. But like, why do we have to constantly have to be stressed about these like really minuscule numbers, when the point of healthy eating is having variety and having the ability to just like pick and choose what feels right for you at that moment and at that day. And it all adds up. It's not these like very strict rules, because when you're stressed like that and it's causing you anxiety, that's a problem.
Yeah. And so what you're kind of just what you're describing in the latter is that disordered eating. So disordered eating can look like you're spending a lot of time thinking about the food, or saying things like, I need to earn that, or like, I'm sure I can eat that, but I got to run 3 miles. Or you're constantly, it's consuming more of your headspace than it should. That's disordered eating.
Should, yeah. And it's, again, there's now what we coined, as orthorexia, which is kind of considered an eating disorder about eating too healthy, right? Which is like, what do you mean you're eating too healthy? But like, again, like, if you don't want to eat any fat, if you don't want to eat any carbs, if like everything you eat has to be this like pristine, perfect looking plate where you can calculate everything on it, where it's literally consuming your life, that is a problem, right? I literally describe like a healthy eating pattern as like, you wake up every day, you eat throughout the day. Yeah, you get hungry, you're planning ahead, like, oh, what do I want to have for lunch? What do I want to have for dinner? But it is not causing you stress. Like, you are not stressed to the point of like, oh, wait, I can't have that because I had this earlier. And like, wait, I had a cookie, so now I can't have, carbs at night. Or like, oh, wait, I had this, so now I got to make sure I have to go run, 3 miles. Like, if your whole life is like that meme of that lady with like all the little. I was just about to describe
that meme, because that's exactly what I'm picturing.
If that is how you feel about food, we need to reel it back in, and you need to talk to a professional, because you should not be stressed about that. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't be, like I talk about it in the book, it doesn't mean that you can't be like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm eating enough protein. I want to make sure that I'm eating enough carbs. I want to make sure that my meals are balanced. It is the reaction to it that you have, right? Like, is it consuming you? Like, can you not go out with your friends and just like have a night where you're just like, I'm just going to have wine and pizza and just like not feel crappy afterwards because I ate it. Like that's what I, feel like is the difference, or we know is the difference. You shouldn't be that mean lady, which we should put right now in the
Yeah, don't be calculating nonstop. Enjoy the time out.
Yes.
And so,
enjoy, yes.
And of course, that's easier said than done, right? Because we have this culture that's constantly drilling that in. There's so many people that there's constant messages that our body's not good enough. And so it's very difficult to break away from that. So what are some of the ways that you help your clients break away from that? And maybe talk to us about your chula method.
Yeah. So I think that the way that I think about it is like, how are we going to live our life as normal as possible? I mean, I think of like how my abuela and like the people before us, maybe not my mom, obviously, like diet culture was really big in the 80s and 90s. Yes. But, before that, people just ate. People just move their bodies. Of course, now we live a lot more sedentary lifestyles, and gyms didn't exist back then, right? So now, of course, if you're working out, you're running marathons, if you're doing a lot of the things that are newer to the human world, you, of course, want to make sure that you're getting enough nutrition. But again, it shouldn't be to the point where you are stressing out about every crumb that goes into your mouth. It's more about like, how can we learn to add nutrition? How can we learn to create full meals, right? And full plates that are going to serve the purpose that they're supposed to do, give us nutrition and give us fuel, but also satisfaction throughout the day. How is it going to be not only good for, your body, but for the soul? Because food is more than just fuel. And I think that that's something that people have like really forgotten, because they just eat and it tastes like, can I curse?
Yes, you can certainly curse. And I know exactly what it tastes like, because for a very long time I was eating the rubber, like the baked chicken and the brown rice and the broccoli for Monday through Friday. So I know it doesn't taste that great.
It was joyless. It was joyless. Right. I'm sure like you were like, by Friday, you were like, what the heck is happening here? Like, I just want something else. And that a lot of the time causes binging. And I don't know if that happened to you, but a lot of times I see with my clients that Saturday comes and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to go wild. I'm going to have everything. And that's a vicious cycle. It's such a like draining way of living. Like if you can't just like enjoy food and like eating healthy, a lot of people are like, eating healthy is expensive. Eating healthy is so hard. And it's like, no, what wellness culture is telling you is expensive and hard, right? Like the $20 strawberry that they're selling at Erewhon right now. Like, why are people buying one strawberry for $20?
Oh my goodness.
Beyond me. But that's the trend right now, right? And it's like people assume that these like $30 smoothies from, these smoothie places, it's like the only way you can eat healthy, right? Or like go into these like salad places and like getting these like huge, pretty looking salads that cost you $15, $16, $17. Like that's what people assume is eating healthy. And listen, I love me a salad from another place. I can't make salads like that, but like there's other food I can make at home. And there's other food that I can buy and combine that is going to be just as healthy and give me all the nutrients. And it doesn't have to be that difficult. And I think that that's what people need to understand. And that's what I try to teach with the Chula method. It's like, how can we simplify the way that we think about food? How can we start to understand the science, right, behind the food? Because I think that that does help when you understand like, oh, this is a carb, this is a protein, this is a fat, this is fiber. I need to make sure I have all of these to have a complete meal so that I know that it carries me those 3 to 5 hours. Or this is a snack. I only need it for like a burst of energy for like 1 to 2 hours. So let me just get something quick, right? Once we start understanding that and it doesn't become so overwhelming, we're able to make choices throughout the day that not only satisfy your joyfulness of eating and just like your taste buds, but also your health. Because the more stressed you are, the worse it is for your health. And we need to find that happy balance and understanding that like every meal is a new beginning, and every day is a new day, and nobody's going to be perfect. There is not one person that's going to eat perfect every single day for their whole life. Like that's just impossible. Like perfectionism is not attainable.
Yeah. And like, I think you were getting at earlier how maybe you binge on the weekend. So it's also ineffective, right? A lot of these diets that are very restrictive, that cause us stress, that makes us calculate stuff all day long, at the end of the day, may not even be all that effective. And a lot of what you promote here is that once we break free from all that, and approach every meal the way you've just described for us, is a way that we can also appreciate our cultural foods, right? We can go back to our cultural foods that have a lot of flavor and nutrition and balance when we were making those smart decisions. Okay, you did talk a little bit about fads, and I think fads, it's hard to divorce the idea of healthy eating with how people think about their bodies, right? A lot of times people approach or seek out the help of a dietitian because they're trying to attain a certain body type. So a lot of these things are intertwined. So one of the fads right now is there's a lot of people that are taking Ozempic or some medication similar to that to achieve a certain look. Yeah. And, whether it works for someone or not, there's a lot of judgment around it. I'm curious about your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Well, as a dietitian, I'm never going to judge somebody. I think, I say that in the very beginning of the book. I'm like, this is not a place for judgment. I will never judge someone for wanting to lose weight. I feel like it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Like we see these celebrities where like, oh, she's on Ozempic. How dare she be on Ozempic? Like she, shouldn't have gone on it. She, shouldn't have lost weight. But in the same breath, like 3 months ago, you were like yelling at the tabloids because she was a little chubby. You know what I mean? Like you can't have it both ways. But also like we're humans and we live in a society that values that thinness. So for me to be like, you can't want that, it's dumb. It's so dumb. And so my place as a dietitian is not to dictate what you should and should not do. My place is to educate. So my biggest goal is to give people the pros and the cons. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem, at least in my practice, with everybody that we're seeing, and with my friends who are dietitians as well, we don't see that doctors are going in and giving the patient that consensual education where they have no idea what they're getting into. They're just taking the medicine and thinking, oh, great, I'm just going to lose weight, right? But they don't understand, okay, what do you need to do? What are the side effects? Do I have to be on this long term? Can I ever get off of it? Like, these are not conversations that are being had. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are shocked when they learn, right, about what it takes to be on this medication, and that it does have to be long term, because if you do get off, that weight is going to come on. Maybe not, for some people, we don't see it as quickly. For some people, we see it very quickly. So it's like, what is your ultimate goal with this medication, right? And for a lot of people, it does completely take away their hunger levels and their cues, and they're not eating enough. And so we see a lot of bone damage. We see a lot of muscle mass loss. We see a lot of hair loss. We see a lot of malnutrition because, again, their doctor isn't giving them the information that they need. And again, I'm not judging anyone that's on it. In my practice, we see a lot of people that are on it, and our job is to make sure that they're getting enough nutrition, right? That is the ultimate goal. And so I think that I come from it from a place of, compassion, and I'm not going to judge. I am not going to tell you what to do, but I am going to share the research, and I am going to share the science, and I am going to tell you, like, you have to eat. You have to eat enough. And those are the things that we're helping manage. But am I going to tell somebody not to do it? No, I'm just going to give them the facts and they get to choose to. Do we have people that choose not to go on it? Yes, because once they're presented with the facts, they're like, oh no, like that's not really what I thought it was going to be, and I don't want to do it. And there's people that are like, yes, I'm 1000% going to do it. And, I'm going to take this and ride it out. There's a lot of people that are on it for medical reasons, like diabetes. And again, they feel the guilt of like, oh, well, now I'm being judged because I'm on it for diabetes, and I might have lost weight because I went on it. And now it's like, oh, you're on Ozempic. And it's like, no, there should be no no guilt or shame associated with any of it, but I do think that there has to be some consensual understanding of what it is that you're getting into.
Yeah.
And that was very long-winded.
No, I appreciate it. And I think that kind of underscores some other points in the book, because what you also start out with is telling us how doctors don't necessarily have this nutrition and dietitian background, and that's why it's so important to work with a dietitian, and that's different than a nutritionist. So there's lots of education in this book. So that's what I want people to know, that you're going to be feeling empowered after reading it. What do you hope people walk away with?
So I hope that they walk away with just like a better understanding of what like nutrition is. I feel like it's kind of like a crash course into nutrition 101 without like the fear mongering and like shirtless guy in the supermarket yelling at you, telling you that like this has this in it, or like, you know, the biggest thing right now with like, oh, if you can't pronounce it, then, you know, you shouldn't eat it. It's like, I'm sorry, if you didn't take an organic chemistry class, you're not going to be able to pronounce that. And even all of us that did take an organic chemistry class, those are not words that are meant to be pronounced in every day. They're literally just scientific words about the chemical makeup of that particular, you know, molecule or food. And so I think a lot of people, we're in that like very anti-intellectualism space where people are just like, do your own research. And it's like, y'all aren't even doing your own research because you can't even read a research paper. I understand it. So like,
exactly. The people telling you to do your own research level. Cannot read an academic book.
No, they can't. No, I'm sorry. But I also can't read an academic book for physics, right? Like I stay in my lane. I know nutrition. I studied nutrition. That is my lane. I can't go and read a physics book and understand. It's going to be gibberish for me. So if you're a layperson that has never taken a nutrition class and has no idea, you know, what a lot of these terms are, I can't expect you to know that. And that's why so much information gets, you know, out of whack and viral, and people are like, oh. So I at least tried to make nutrition simple in the book. So as I say, you're not bamboozled.
Yeah, perfect.
Into believing all of these things.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I think this book is really empowering. So I hope people pick it up. Once again, that's the Latina Anti-Diet. And where can people get connected with you? Tell us about where people can follow your socials and all that.
Yeah, so my handles everywhere are Your Latina Nutritionist. That is also our website, yourlatinanutritionist.com. The book is there under, you know, the books tab. It's also coming out in Spanish on July 1st.
Perfect.
So it's being translated as we speak. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just have one handle, one
website.
That's
perfect. That's okay. Marketing 101. You jumped on that handle quick, and that's great.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Delina. Yes. This was a really informative conversation, and I'm really excited for more people to read the book, and how wonderful that it's available in Spanish. So everybody should pre-order the Spanish version for your mom for Mother's Day. This would be perfect. All right. Thank you so much. All right. That was a fabulous conversation. You all pick up the book right away. All right. We are ready to have Delsy back for our rapid fire closing questions. I know it's been a while, but you know what we do here, Delsy. So let's start with your basura. I mean, there's been so much basura since we last connected. It's like the dumpster is just insane. But what goes in la basura for you, Delsy?
Oh my God. I felt that way when I was thinking about basuras today. I was like, there's so many. And I think I chose one that I felt less emotional talking about. But I have been reading a lot about Hollywood shifting over to a more conservative lean. I've been hearing a lot about executives who are making decisions to fast track storylines, wanting storylines to change if they have a progressive kind of byline. I've been hearing a lot about people moving forward with more like traditional value stories and things like that. Even Prime just brought back The Apprentice reruns and things like that.
Everybody, please do not have Prime. If you're listening to this podcast and you still have Prime and you're not living in some rural place, reassess.
Yeah, I just think like there's just this commodification of art that has happened for a long, long time. And we know that that's definitely the case in media and film. But to see it be so blatant, like as the country and the world starts shifting toward a more conservative value system, or so it seems, there's a lot of follow through in terms of, people following the money. And I think that the level of damage that causes, I mean, if you think about the way media impacted you growing up, it is such a major problem to think about progressive stories being cut and certain rhetoric being infused into what we're watching every day. I just basura
Absolutely.
to that.
Basura to that. And I also think it's an economic mistake, because even though we need to be reminded, everybody, that this was not a mandate. Trump was not elected by a mandate. There were so many people that stayed home. And I think we need to just know that the reason why there's all this pushback is because our movement, our progressive movement, is growing. There's more people leaving organized religion. There's more people accepting, and it just feels like there's been a shift. But I feel rooted in knowing that I think there's more of us on this side. And so anybody that is trying to fall in line, if you will, I think they're making an economic mistake, honestly, among other mistakes.
And there's so much reimagining happening too, right? Like there isn't this black and white and, this or that. Like there's been a lot of rethinking, reimagining, reintegrating. And I thought that was progress, pero, as we're starting to dismantle some of these ideas, it's awful to see it happening in a place that has been historically so progressive like Hollywood.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, my basura is kind of similar in those lines. I've been seeing this concerning trend of foos gone Trump. Okay. So I see content creators and others that might have this cholo or Chicano aesthetic, but their values do not fall in line with that. Their values are for Trump. And I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because I'm thinking back to, again, middle school crush, my middle school crush, who was a big fan of Easy. He was he was a child of cholos. He made me a mixed CD that was awesome. And of course, like all of us, we're all friends on Facebook, but they're not really engaged. But I remember this person that didn't go to college, still has that cholo look, kind of think like being a Trumper. And it's just like, I cannot believe this. I cannot imagine this. It's just inconceivable. So I'm really concerned with this growing trend. And I think the reminder in both cases of both of our basuras is that we as consumers need to practice discernment, ask the right questions, and don't feed into this. Don't watch those things that are going to have that message. And how do we find ways to support the alternate, like the things that do align with our values? I'll give you kind of related to this. I joined a gym that I was very excited about, mostly because they had a schedule that I liked, because they had classes at 5:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. I was excited to support a Latino-owned gym. And of course, later I learned that these Latinos are Latinos for Trump. And so I decided to end my membership. And it reminded me that why do I even have a third gym when the two gyms that I already work at that I support are very progressive? This is everybody is a trans inclusive gym founded by trans people. That's where our money needs to be. We need to be supporting local. Another partner of another friend of the pod, there's Todo Verde. If you follow their account, they did a really great listicle of women-owned local markets. Support those markets. Don't spend your money at Target. There's just so many ways that we could continue to reward the right values and be conscious of where our dollars go. That's the takeaway there.
Yes, I think it's also a really nice reminder that when we think about the complexity of identity, that not everybody is going to align just because they're a person of color or because they're a member of the LGBTQIA community. That doesn't necessarily mean that their values align. I think a lot of people are feeling that way about Mayor Adams in New York City, for example, is a good example. And so I think doing your research is really important.
Yes. Okay. To counter all that negative energy, what is your matraca? What is something that you're celebrating?
Yeah, I have to say, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, o saber, pero for me, I really liked seeing Congresswoman Brittany Peterson bring her 4-week-old son to vote on the House floor in opposition of a GOP budget deal last month, because her point was, hey, you guys are using my maternity leave as a way to exclude me from an incredibly important vote by not allowing me to have somebody else be a proxy or voting remotely or whatever it might be. You're using that to your political advantage. And you're talking about being so pro-family, but you're not allowing me an accommodation for having given birth 4 weeks ago. So I'm going to show up and I'm going to bring my child with me to work. And she's since been able to partner with a different representative. Her name is Ana Paulina Luna, who are trying to vote on a resolution that will allow parents to have a proxy vote. And so I just think it was a really strong stance on her part, and just, thanking her for making such a massive sacrifice to come make a big decision about the future of our budget.
Love it. Big Matraca, what a powerful message. We need to remember as a society that we need children, right? Like in order for humanity to continue, people are going to have babies. And if we want them to be part of society, we need to make accommodations for the continuation of our human race, right? Like people that have children are
but
real.
Also like,
and they're people.
Yes. And not just kids, there are people who they need to go to chemotherapy because they're treating cancer, and you're using it as a political tool to keep votes out of the floor. It just is so icky.
So icky.
So icky.
Yes. Okay. Well, my matraca and slash inspiración, although I do have some inspirations as well, is friend of the pod, Melissa Parra. So she's been a guest on this podcast. She's been a longtime fan of the show, but Melissa's a friend as well. And as soon as the fires started, like she was volunteering. She was immediately volunteering, and she has a lot of relationships. So she got others to volunteer, and she got a space donated. And now she's the founder of Colibri Collective. So just from her immediate volunteering, she's formalized this official group that is rebuilding Altadena and Pasadena through love, respect, and action, and just giving people new things that they lost during the fire, with a place where they can come to and shop with dignity, quote unquote shop, because everything is free. And I'm just like so inspired, because this is just a regular old person that has has a job, is a mother, is a podcast listener, that tapped into her relationships and got this started in such a short time. I just want to give her a big matraca to Melissa.
Yes, matraca, qué lindo, and super inspiring too.
Super inspiring. Okay, speaking of inspiring, what is your inspiración?
Okay, so if you listen to the show, then you probably know that I am very interested in animals. I'm very interested in science. I'm very interested in conservancy. These are things I like. And so from time to time, I check in on the migrations. If you live in Morelia, for example, you're familiar with the butterfly migrations. There's all kinds of beautiful migrations that happen in the world. And I kind of check in to see the numbers and make sure that some of these animals are doing well. So I wanted to just highlight, I know it's for people who are not into it, is like, okay, pero for me, it's such an important thing. The orange-bellied parrot is this beautiful parrot, green parrot with an orange belly, that was endangered, critically endangered, almost gone in the world. And there have been all of these conservation efforts that have happened in Tasmania in particular, and they have done things like captive breeding, creating habitats and protecting land. And I'm happy to say that the numbers have been increasing. Last season, it was about 105, which was up from 96 the previous year. This year, they're expecting 200 of these parrots to migrate. And so we're kind of anxiously waiting to see if that is the case. There are still some threats to their survival, but it is a beautiful thing. And I'm so inspired by the conservation efforts of these people who spend their whole life making sure that these species continue for the enjoyment of future generations. So inspiración all the way.
Oh my gosh. Also, I love, this is obviously good news, but that's still, wow, that's still a very small number, right? That's still a very, very small number.
It's still a very small number. I mean, we're celebrating 200 parrots, you know.
Wow.
That's very alarming.
It underscores how precious
it's up,
they
and
are.
that's
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, it is.
How precious. Yeah. So if you go to YouTube and check them out, because they're so cute.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Yes, that's a wonderful source of inspiration, and it underscores the great work of the people that make that possible. So that's good. And we need every little bit of good news, right? We need every little bit of good news that we can get. Okay, for my inspiración, it's so silly, but like the way that I've been taking care of my brain in this horrible environment that we're living in is just disconnecting, right? I read headlines, I stay informed, but I'm not listening. I don't want to hear the news. I don't want to see the news. I can read it. That's what I could tolerate. So one of the ways that I'm keeping my brain occupied is I've been really diving into romance novels and romance movies. And like, I gotta tell you all, it's good. Do it. You know, it really rekindles that feeling, because you can never revisit. I mean, you can revisit, but you can never be in that moment again of the early stages of love and romance and a crush and finding that love. It's such a beautiful feeling that you want to just bottle up. So if you ever want to tap back into it, read a romance novel or watch a romance book. I mean, romance movie. Couple that stand out. I just finished one called Book Lovers. Had such a satisfying ending. Go listen to that. I really got into Normal People. I don't know if you've read this. There's a series on Hulu. This one's sort of devastating in a good way. So sometimes it's nice to feel devastated. So I don't know. Have you seen this or read this, Delsy?
I actually just started watching this. Yeah, I've only seen like a couple of episodes.
Oh, it's so devastating. I love it. But also the book is very, very good. And I think the series did a pretty decent job. I will say the series has a little bit more of a satisfying ending than the book, but also very good. And I just rewatched Pride and Prejudice.
My God, classic. Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Darcy. So, y'all, if you need a something to take your brain off everything, try that. All right, Delsy, you got through it. Oh, but go ahead.
I just wanted to say, oh my God, this no me acuerdo, maybe you do. Did you watch this Korean American film?
Oh, okay. I haven't yet, but I want to. Is it called Other Lives or something Lives or Past Lives?
Yeah,
Past Lives.
Other
Past
Lives,
I think.
Past Lives.
I haven't yet.
Okay,
but
I just watched it for the second time. Talk about beautiful romance and beautiful devastation. So watch it, and I can't wait to hear about your reaction. But it does really bring you back to that kind of bottled, enamored feeling.
I gotta see this. Okay, what platform did you watch this on? So I know where to find it.
I thought that I just watched it on Hulu.
Okay, perfect. I will check it out. Yeah. Amazing. Delsy, so wonderful to have you back. Thank you so much for being here, y'all. Ponte un suéter, subscribe, share, all the things. Thank you so much for being here.
Y saludos a la familia.
Yay! Tamarindo Podcast is Brenda Gonzalez and Delsy Sandoval. We are also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song. Sonoro Media's Karina Riveroll provides production support, and Cliva Torres edits our episodes for YouTube. The best way to support our work is to rate and review Tamarindo or share an episode with a friend. Get in touch with us at tamarindopodcast.com.
Sonoro. I'm not going to lie, you're slacking. You're slacking on starting that business you've been holding off on. It's just living in your head. And if you don't act now, that idea is going to leave, or maybe someone's going to take that idea. And there's a tool that I personally use, and that is Shopify. You don't need to be a web designer. You can just start moving, zooming in, adding the text you need, adding pictures you need. And Shopify has so many templates you can use from. Get it out of your head and onto a website with Shopify. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sell. They make it easy to manage growing your business. They help with details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on all the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/sonoro, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/sonoro to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/sonoro.